For those of you who don't know who I am, my name is Monica Bloom, and I am the creator of HeyMonicaB.com, a blooming resource on Ayurveda, and author of In Your Elements, a blooming Ayurvedic guide to creating your best life. Doshas today. So remember, we are governed by the 5 great elements, right? So space, air, fire, water, and earth. Okay, and we know that by now, all the way out to the great universe and the earth itself and all the nature surrounding, and all the way down into our deepest cells, it's just those 5 things: space, air, fire, water, and earth. Well, from those 5 elements are created the 3 doshas. So I have a handy dandy little printout, and wouldn't you know that when I need a printout, my printer runs out of toner. So it's black and white, but you can see, here we go, and look, it even cut it off, it says pace instead of space. So here we have space and air creating Vata dosha. Vata is the energy of movement. If you think about space and air, it's very, very subtle and it moves very quickly, right? Space is the container where things are created. Space is also, in proper Ayurveda, it is ether. It is not just nothing. It is not a space of nothing. It's a subtle gas. And with a space and a subtle gas, there are things that can be created within that space, right? Just a little tip for yourselves. If you are ever in a space where you can't get any creativity, or just like, I don't know why I'm so blocked, I don't have any creative ideas, slow everything down. We can only be creative. Things are only created when there's space to do so. Yeah? Okay, so space and air create Vata dosha. Air, you can think of like the wind. And Vata is the energy of movement. And so it moves things from place to place. It moves things up and down. It moves things round in a circle. Okay, it is known as the king of the doshas because without Vata, the other 2, Pitta and Kapha, can't move. Let's move on. So the next one is Pitta dosha. And look at here, fire and water elements make Pitta dosha the energy of transformation. Okay, so Pitta transforms things, whether it's our thoughts, our judgments, our food. It transforms things from the fire element, right? If you think about what happens when you put something on a fire, okay? You take a log, put it on the fire, light it on fire. What happens to the log? It's no longer a log, right? It turns into ashes. So it has turned into something else. And that's Pitta's job. It transforms things, turns things into something else, and makes things into something different. Specifically, the most easily understandable is our digestion. Turns our food into useful things for our body that builds our bodies, helps our bodies nourish, and it kicks the rest out as poop. So with the Pitta energy, it sorts, it transforms, and it moves it on through its way. Okay, then we have Kapha dosha, which is made of water and earth. Now look at here, look at how much more dense this dosha is compared to this dosha here. We've got space and air, very light, very subtle things with Vata dosha. Oh, then we got some fire and water. Now it's a little bit more substantial, right? Then you get all the way over here to Kapha. Now we got the mountains, and we got the solid earth, and we got the mud, and we have the structure. And Kapha dosha is the energy of lubrication and structure. There we go. So it is responsible for sticking things together and adhering things and building that, building the structure and creating creation. Kapha creates things. Okay, so through these 3 doshas, Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. Okay, these 3 doshas live in our bodies. They're also in the greater nature. So they're not just in us, they are in the greater nature as well. They rule certain times of day, which we're going to talk about when we talk about routine. They rule certain seasons, which if you have ever downloaded one of my seasonal blooms, Vata, Pitta, or Kapha seasonal bloom, you will get the whole scoop on how to manage ourselves during that season. Okay. The other thing I want you to know is that these doshas, they're not just 3 of them. There's actually 15 of them. So there's 3 doshas. Each one of them have 5 sub-doshas in our body that do a certain different function. We have no time to talk about that today, and it's quite a bit deeper conversation than maybe you even need to know at this point, but I want you to be aware that it's not just one function. For example, Vata has several different movements. There's a movement that goes in, there's a movement that goes out, there's a movement that goes this way, circular around our hearts, and there's one that goes up and down, right? So there's several different things that our body needs to do to move through all the processes. And that is an example of how all 5 of these Vata subdoshas work. So here's where Ayurveda gets cool. Everybody wants to know, what dosha am I? And if you're brand new to Ayurveda, that question comes from, we will gravitate toward being 1, possibly 2 doshas that are most prominent in us, okay? So this is an important point. We have all 5 elements in us. All of us do. Every one of us has all 5 elements in us, right? But we have them in different combinations. We all have like our own unique combination of elements, which create the doshas, which is why we are completely and totally unique individuals. No 2 of us are the same. Yes, we're built with the same parts, right? Like we've got eyes, we've got a heart, we've got a liver, we've got arms, we've got legs. But if you look at somebody else's hands, they might not have purple nail polish on, but their hands are never going to look the same as yours, neither is their face. And the same thing goes for the inner workings of our entire body. Those parts are not the same size and shape in any of us, right? We are all completely unique. So this is the sticking point of the doshas. Now, you're going to be like, what dosha am I? Good question. If you don't know your dosha yet, you can go to HeyMonicaB.com and go up top and you'll see where it says dosha test. Just click on it and take the test. When you take the dosha test, I want you to think not necessarily about who you are today, not necessarily about who you want to be, but you're going to try and figure out who that person is that you naturally are. Because over life, we have things happen to us, right? We make choices. Sometimes we make bad choices for a really long time. Alters our physicality. Sometimes we don't work out as often as we should, and we notice our body starts to get out of shape, right? We don't quite feel like ourselves. We don't have quite the most vibrant energy that we could. Well, yeah, because we have acquired not so great habits over time, which leads us to a point, perhaps, let's use this as an example of the exercise. Let's say we haven't exercised in a very long time. Maybe you had a baby, right? And now the baby's 3 and you're like, what happened to myself? What happened to my workouts? Oh my gosh, I'm out of shape. And by out of shape, I do not mean fat. I will never say that. We get out of our own shape. And that's important because with these unique doshas, with your unique self, you have a unique shape. And you are never going to try and match your shape to somebody else's shape. Okay? Right? You have your own shape. I want everybody right now to go, thank you, shape. And you be thankful for that shape. Okay? It's yours. It's beautiful. But over time, we might get out of shape with ourselves. And so we might get into a space where we feel tired, we feel sluggish, we feel heavy, earthy, slow, sticky, which is perhaps where we've moved more into a Kapha imbalance. Right? The lack of movement has created more structure for us because we're not bringing in the heat from exercise. We're not bringing in the air from maybe some cardio when your feet actually catch the air, right? We're not bringing that in, so we get a little sluggish over time. That's just one tiny example of how we can go from a place of where we're feeling optimal with our dosha balance into a place where we're not feeling so balanced. So going backwards to what I was saying, when you take the dosha test, you're going to take it as your unique, your most pure self. When you were feeling the best in your entire life, the best in your body, it might be all the way back to grade school. It might be back in high school. I don't know. It might be right now. You might be like, I feel better than I have in grade school and high. I feel so good. So take the test according to who you are naturally. You will find that you'll be a balance of, you'll have one that's probably dominant, maybe two that are dominant at the same time. It is extremely rare to have all three doshas in equal parts. Extremely rare. So if you do that, ask the questions, take the test again. Okay. So now you're going to go find out your own dosha, which is very, very cool. If you already know your dosha, here's what I want you to think about. We have a tendency to say, well, I am Vata, so I am going to be late. I just can't help it. I'm just always naturally scattered. I can't help it. I lose my thoughts all the time. I can't help it. I'm forgetful. Those things, that's very Vata, right? So let's just say Pitta, I can't help it. Things just fly out of my mouth and I'm just a very direct person and I just don't have a filter. Like, I'm just not that person. Okay. And Kapha is just like, well, I just move a little bit slower and I just like to experience things a little more. I probably have too much clutter. I like to shop the sales, so I like to buy things in multiples. Okay. All those things that I just said for each one of those doshas is imbalancing for the dosha. And it's actually one of their faults. So dosha actually means fault, because when they go out of balance, we go out of balance. So what I want you to do is when you understand what your dosha is, you can go on my website and read more about these doshas. We'll be talking more about them as well, a little bit more in depth. They're way too much to go through all three of them in like a 10-minute video. Too much. But first take the test. Find out who you are. If you already know who you are, here's your takeaway. I want you to think about the things that are the faults of the doshas, and I want you to make them better. If you are a Vata person and you're like, oh, I'm always late, I'm always forgetful, work harder at that, because that's not natural for you. Okay? When we shine a light at the things that we're not good at, whoop, 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 up we go up the ladder. Right? We get more vibrant, we get stronger in ourselves because we're actually facing something that's not easy for us. And from there, we get stronger, we get more confident, and we get better at overcoming obstacles in general. Okay? So if you're Pitta and you're like, oh, I don't have a filter, I don't know, things just come out very directly, I'm just very organized, I can't stand a mess, I can't take it when they leave their sloppy things all over the place. Work a little harder. It's okay if they leave their stuff on the floor for right now. It doesn't always have to be perfect and neat. If you know that you're a very direct person with a sharp tongue, soften it. Soften your delivery. Think about what they might be thinking when you say something that is very direct, that with no filter, that might be like, oh, like dagger to somebody else, right? Think about that. If you're Kapha and you're like, I just like to take my time and be slow and, maybe collect the things. Think about the other people, right? They might be waiting for you. They might be counting on you. Kaphas usually do not have a problem with letting people down. They usually have a problem with overcommitting to people and leaving themselves last. So Kaphas also, if that's your problem, take care of yourself first. You come first so you can be strong enough so that you can take care of everybody else. Okay? Is this helpful? Am I giving you enough good information? You're getting questions from the doshas? We're going to wrap this up in a few minutes, but I'd like you to hang out for a second. If you have specific questions, I would love to answer your questions on the doshas. I'll answer a couple of them if you have them. So again, what I want you to take away from today's lesson are these things. I want you to understand. I want you to understand space and air create Vata dosha, the energy of movement. Fire and water create the energy of Pitta. Pitta is energy of transformation. Water and earth create Kapha, the energy of lubrication and structure. Just understand that for today, and that is good work already, because we have to understand how the elements and how the doshas begin to work before we go into other things, like why does massage work, or why is the daily routine the way it is, what kind of foods am I supposed to eat for me, like what kind of snacks should I have for me. All of it will make sense once you grasp this foundation. Okay, so for today, your takeaways are going to be, if you don't know your dosha, go to HeyMonicaB.com, take the dosha test and find out. If you already know your dosha, pick on one thing that is hard for you, that's difficult, that's maybe a fault that you see in yourself, right? And you'll be like, all right, this week I'm gonna get better at that. I'm just gonna pick one thing and I'm going to make that better about myself. So while you're practicing that, go forward, stay excited, and keep bringing Ayurveda to life.